Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
I'm Sue Yasov, the CEO and founder of Marquette Marketing, and I'll be hosting the marketing series of the Haven Hubcast.
On today's podcast, we're lucky enough to have with us Haley Seeger. Haley is a social media influencer and a content creator. She's also the founder of OneWith. She has a collective following of over 100,000 across platforms. So that includes YouTube, Instagram, and Amazon Live. Welcome, Haley.
Thank you so much for having me, Sue.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I have been an influencer since influencers really began. We weren't called influencers back then, though. In 2008, I started my YouTube channel. So I was 12, about to turn 13, and I discovered this whole YouTube beauty community. And I just remember, I don't even remember thinking about it. I just remember feeling like I had to do this. So I've basically been creating content online ever since. And I actually went full time as a content creator / influencer back in the fall of 2019. So it's been about a year and a half that this has been my full-time job. And then before I went full-time with this, I worked in the fashion industry. So I have kind of the experience of working, for small businesses and then also having my own small business as well.
My goodness. So you've been doing this since you were 12. Talk about a high performer. So that's great.
Thank you.
Okay. So, in this podcast, we're going to be discussing social media. So how to get yourself known on social, how to expand your audience. So could you give us just a general overview of what to think about when a small business really wants to get out there on social?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when I talk to small business owners, I hear a lot of misconceptions, and I find myself kind of dispelling a lot of misconceptions that small business owners might have in regards to setting up, establishing, maintaining a social media presence. So I'm sure we can talk a little bit about that in a second. But I think the really big thing for small business owners, even, aspiring content creators to remember is there's two pieces of social media, right? There's the content creation aspect, and then there's the engagement aspect, reaching new customers or new followers and kind of feeding both of those things. So you not only have to put your content creator cap on to start thinking of ideas, but you also have to know how to kind of feed the platform and, know how to use that to get the results that you want. So that's where I come in and I help small business owners sort of tailor a strategy for them that works for them. And I also, the other thing about doing small business social media and me kind of consulting is I do believe everything should be looked at very holistically. I think that not every small business owner is the same. They're not going to all like the same platforms. I don't believe that everybody needs to be on every single platform that exists. I think that it's really important to look at you as a small business owner, your small business, and exactly what strategies and what platforms will be best for you to succeed on.
Excellent overview. Thank you, Haley. Why don't we go through those things one by one? So in terms of content, generating great content, and I know you're a content creator. So why don't you give us a little bit of a bit of a deeper dive? How do you generate that great content in order to get engagement?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think because I've been doing this for so long, for essentially over half of my life now, I've been in a perpetual state of thinking of content. So when I work with people, I try to get them into my brain for a little bit of me sort of like walking around all day, thinking about the topics I can make videos on and things like that. But one thing that I always sort of reiterate to people I'm working with is, a lot of the things that are a part of your small business, your practice, whatever service you offer that seem very mundane to you, that might not be of note to you could be really cool content for your social media platforms. For example, I know it's not glamorous to a bakery owner who goes in at 3 a.m. every morning to start doing, start baking bread. I know that is not glamorous to that specific business owner, like I said, but that makes really cool behind the scenes content, right? To kind of show that process.
I wouldn't want to do it, but I might want to watch it. Absolutely.
Exactly. And it's funny because to me, it's like, I have always loved the job of news anchors. But the one thing about being a news anchor is you have to go in at 2 a.m. Right. So, but I always loved the behind the scenes of that. Right. But so again, it's the things that might seem like you might write it off. You might discount it as not being interesting, might be really cool to show your personality, the person behind the brand, and also what goes into your business. So once you start sort of putting a new lens on just your day to day, you would be surprised at how much content you can probably generate. And then once you start getting into a groove, it'll become very natural to you.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And how about other types of content? You and I were talking yesterday about content that is really all about your customer.
Yes.
Can you delve into that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think I made this sort of comment that if you are not making content or not putting out content, on your platforms with your desired customer in mind, it's basically a vanity project, right? What's the point if you're not talking to the person that you want to talk to? So keeping that person in mind while you're creating content, while you're posting, while you're engaging is so important. I give the example, my 2 niches on YouTube, and that's another huge tip that I can dive into, is just niching down in your content. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But my 2 niches on YouTube are bridal advice, because I used to work in the bridal industry for over 7 years, and then Amazon content. So when I make a bridal video, I'm not making a bridal video about what I would wear as a bride, right? I am making bridal videos about, how brides can find their best wedding gown. It's not self-serving, it's serving the woman who's watching my content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I, in content classes that I teach and content that I generate, I always keep that in mind as well, because even when you're doing white papers, infographics, any kind of content that you're producing, it really is all about your customer.
Absolutely. And I feel like, if you're perceptive, I feel like it's decently easy to spot when someone is making content as a business that is for them. And
and we don't have a lot of patience for it, right?
No, we don't. And I think it grows tiring. And again, I think it looks self-serving. So let's not be self-serving. Let's serve our customer and let's talk directly to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a difference between making a behind the scenes video that's engaging and maybe interesting, right, and going too far and making self-serving content.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a fine line, and also kind of blends the whole, what's personal content that you don't share on your business page as a small owner, what's personal content that infuses personality into your business.
Yeah.
And, and that's all the conversations that I have with individual business owners about what works for them.
Right. Right. And then let's delve into the other side of it, which is another goal of social media, is to expand your reach, to kind of, and we talk about, the marketing funnel, the top of funnel, get yourself out there and get yourself known. What are some tips that people can use social media for in doing that?
Absolutely. So everybody's business and their goal in terms of what they're trying to do is going to obviously be dependent on what product or service they're offering, right? So, I'm going to give the example of a photographer. Your goal is to get them to probably submit an inquiry on your website, right? So we want to outfit their page to basically have that call to action driven home and make it super easy for any prospective brides or engagement sessions, right, to book that session as easily as humanly possible. If you're a product-based business, you want to make sure that the link to your Shopify site where people can check out is prominent. We want to integrate Shopify in your Instagram profile so people can do like a one-click checkout. We want to outfit that page so it's as easy as possible to convert. So, that's reaching / capturing your audience. And then there's also, in terms of conversion, and then there's also, like you said, growing and reaching a new customer. through hashtags, engaging with the right accounts, collaborating with the right vendors and other people within your industry, locally or nationally, that are really important for reaching a new customer that you're trying to talk to.
Right. So we have hashtags, we have groups, we have methods of engagement, get engaged with people who have large populations that listen to them. And all of that is really helpful.
Exactly.
Terrific. And, you touched on it a little bit before, but I want to come back to common misconceptions. So what are common misconceptions that people might have out there about social media?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to touch on this, just deep diving a little bit more into what I was saying before. Can you hear my cat playing in the background? I'm sorry. No. Okay. He's playing with his little ball spinny thing, and I can hear it, but it's not close to the mic. Yeah. So I'd love to dive into what I was saying before a little bit more, because I do think that this is the most popular misconception small business owners have about social media. And I think just people in general too, when they want to establish a presence, is that you need to be on every single platform. And you have to be everywhere, and your business has to be, right there and be super prolific on every single social media site. I do not think that's true. I know that's not true. And I also think it can inherently set up a small business owner or whoever's running that account, for burnout. I think it can set them up for burnout very quickly. I always recommend, again, I love like a holistic approach. I love looking at the business owner or founder, their specific services or products, and tailoring a content strategy and platform strategy based on them, their personality, what they think they could exceed at. There are founders and business owners who do not, and I would say this is, I don't want to say vast majority, but it's a lot of them who do not want to be the face of their business. They don't want to be front and center in what they're doing. So something like LinkedIn might not be the best thing to establish themselves as, hi, I'm the face of my business, right? But I feel like the people who do want that really want that, right? So, LinkedIn is a perfect place for the business owner who does want to be the face of their business, but they might, the one who's wants to be a little bit more camera shy, step away a little bit more, might be good at making TikToks and things like that behind the camera to showcase their product or service, right? Where they never actually have to hop on and say hi. And they might have a lot of fun with that. So I try to assess the personality, and I try to listen to what the small business owner is saying. If I do hear that they do want to be a thought leader, or again, like very, very prominent face of their business, a YouTube channel, if they really want to be prolific and deep dive into that, because that is something that has to be that, in and of itself could be a full-time job. But, you really have to listen to what that business owner thinks that they have a good chance at keeping up consistency wise and enjoying. Because if you enjoy publishing that content, you're going to want to keep doing it, right? Of course.
Absolutely. So, can't just be, oh no, I have to do this again today.
Yeah, let's not dread
never
it,
survive.
Right? Yeah, like let's make it fun for you as a business owner or a social media manager that's setting up an account for a small business. I think that that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And can you give us a good example, maybe something that is a model for people to use?
Absolutely. So I always like to I'm giving examples of local businesses, small business accounts. I always like to do a product-based business and a service-based business, right? Because two totally different types of content. It's inherently a little bit easier when it's a product-based business to publish content. So I like to kind of give both. So I love for a product-based business that's based here in Connecticut. They're a national brand, but local company. Mitzi Cosmetics is based in Portland, and they make all natural cosmetics, primarily lip balms. I think I have one right here. They're awesome, super prolific, super active, super consistent on social media. Great. And then for a service-based business, I love a Jubilee event. I believe they're based out of Cheshire, and they're a wedding planning company. So they have a great presence. Yeah, really.
And I would encourage people to check out your presence on YouTube because I think that's a great model to use too. Because you are prolific, and also, in your case, the brand is about you. So that's the linkage there.
Exactly. Thank you.
And before we leave, can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what to stay away from? Maybe what to do is what we really focused on, but maybe the pitfalls, what to stay away from as a social media producer.
Yeah. So I think this is always my big thing too. In addition to trying to be everything to everybody, be on every single platform, that's a huge thing to avoid, right? But also to just be careful as a small business owner, about what I touched on this a little bit before, but what personal content you're sharing. I still see this faux pas being committed every day, if you will, on some of the accounts that I follow, where I literally forget if I'm following the owner's personal account or if it's their business account. Cause I'm like,
right. You have to have somewhat of a separation.
And, I'm going back to like my bakery example. It's like, I'd love to see the cake that was so personal to you that you made for your son's graduation, right? But seeing your son like walk across the stage on his graduation
maybe a little outside of the scope.
Exactly. So again, a faux pas that I see, it's something that I really didn't think would still be around as much in 2021, but it really is. And that's something, again, we can work together with a small business owner about creating a strategy of what personal content should be and can be shared to show that personality, to show a little bit of you without crossing a line where, again, people literally don't know if they're following your personal account or your business account.
Right. Absolutely. And again, touched on this a little before, the niches. You really have to address either specifically what you do for a living or who you do it for. So from a marketing point of view, I agree that targeting element really has to be there.
For sure. And yeah, it took me a long time to kind of come to that conclusion for myself personally. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, it took me way too long to figure out the two sort of buckets of content that really worked for me. So that's why I'm so adamant when I'm working with somebody to identify those things that work for them and their audience, or that could work for them and their audience.
Right.
And really honing in on that from there, because it's so much easier to gain traction in a specific niche than, just being a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been so helpful. Thank you, Haley. And if people need to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my handles are my name, Haley Seeger, HAYLEYSEGAR. And then my email address is my first name, Haley, HAYLEY, is TCB. So ISTCB as in boy @gmail.com. And yeah, that is the best way to drop me a line, send me an email, send me a DM, and we can talk about working together.
Excellent. And also check out the notes at the bottom of this podcast, and you will see my information and Haley's information. Thank you, Haley.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sue.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.